Okay, welcome everyone. Tonight's event is on three concepts for having strong brand imagery. We have Anna Caitlin here from Anna Caitlin Photography. And Anna's a good friend and really skilled in this area. And I was hoping that we could all start just by briefly introducing ourselves and say where you're at with the process of kind of creating your brand. And then I'm going to let Anna introduce herself a little bit more after you all go, and then share her three concepts. So who wants to start us off? Sarah, do you mind starting us? Oh, Louisa, were you going to start?
Yeah, I can start. I'm Louisa. I work, as Ariana said, I work as an attorney, and I am at the very, very beginning. I have no brand whatsoever. I told Ariana I'm extremely ignorant. I am not on any social media platform whatsoever. So I'm not savvy at all when it comes to branding. And I just actually became an attorney 2 years ago. So I'm new to this like marketing realm of, marketing myself as, as an employee kind of thing. So this will be really helpful for me because I'm not even on LinkedIn yet.
Yeah. Thanks, Louisa. Louisa and I were talking too about like all of you are setting up private practices, but also when you're working for someone, like the benefit of having your own brand anyway, so that like, your workplace knows your reputation, but outside of that, does anybody? And if not, then you can create something outside of that so that when you do decide to switch, then it's much easier to change employment. Thanks, Lisa. All right, Sarah.
Sure, I'll go. So I'm, I guess, in the midst of creating a brand. I've been in Ariana's cohort group, and I'm just really getting started. And I've kind of created some things and scrapped them about 3 times. So yeah, I'm really excited to hear more from you and see examples. While I, in a previous job and life, did actually brand management, it's much harder for, I think, doing it for myself than for the products that I used to support.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. Because you're turning yourself into the product in some way, or your therapy service into the product.
Right.
Yeah. Thanks, Sarah.
And therapy, I think specifically, is a tricky thing to market or to like brand. Certain things like products, like if it's like a flower shop or something like that, it's like you can kind of clearly see how to brand that, or like a juice shop or something. But yeah, therapist it's its own kind of tricky to brand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's its own flavor of marketing.
Yeah.
All right, Monica.
Hi, so I am in the same cohort with Colleen and Sarah, and I don't even feel like I understand what it means to have a brand, to brand myself. Like I'm very early in this whole concept. So yeah, I'm just ready to learn anything.
Nice. Yeah. That's really helpful, Monica. What does it mean to have a brand as like a professor or like a trainer or a therapist versus like a Fabletics model?
Exactly.
Like, that was the old career. Now we're doing this.
Yes.
Yeah, that's helpful. Yeah, that's great. What does it mean to have a brand? Thanks, Monica. All right, Colleen.
Athletics definitely got me. I bought a couple things from them. I'm in the startup phase as well, with the counseling business. And the one thing that I feel like I can claim right now are adult Barney colors, shades of purple and green. That's part of my brand. But yeah, I'm curious. I checked out your website and it's gorgeous. So much there, so many different things. yeah, excited to hear.
Thanks, Colleen. All right. And thanks to Anna for being willing to do this. So Anna, do you want to start by sharing just a little bit about your work, I guess, with therapists so far, and then the concepts that you wanted to share for tonight?
Sure, yeah. So I kind of stumbled into doing branding. I think being an entrepreneur, I felt drawn to other entrepreneurs who were starting their businesses, and then thought, wow, I have something that I can really offer pretty much every entrepreneur, which is strong visuals for their business. We live in this really increasingly visual world that our generation and lower are going to need strong visuals in order to comprehend like anything. So if it's not the old way where you could just have text on your website, or you could have no visual presence, it doesn't really matter what you're doing. You're not going to be seen the way you want to be seen, or attracting the kind of clients you want to attract if you don't have a strong visual presence. And that's just kind of the reality of the world we live in. And so as I kind of realized that, I found myself really loving working with all kinds of people starting businesses. And I'm in Portland. I don't know if you guys are all Portland. Is this Portland? Yeah. Portland's like the hub of entrepreneurs. I mean, it's like so many entrepreneurs here, people starting all kinds of businesses. So it's just a lovely experience to work with so many people at the beginning, in the middle, all phases of starting their businesses.
I should note that Luis is in Utah. I don't know if that changes.
That changes everything.
That changes everything. But it does seem like branding is very regional.
Yeah, it can be. Yeah, it can be. I think for me, not as much because, well, yeah, no, it can be. It depends on what your product is, I guess. Obviously, therapists, well, pre-COVID, it was very in-person. So obviously, it's people from your region. But yeah, I work with a lot of, I was joking with Ariana that this year is I've photographed more therapists than any other kind of like branding this year. And I think it's because therapists are doing well, because everybody is feeling very overwhelmed during COVID. And everyone's like, I haven't tried therapy, I need to try it. So therapists are all kind of revamping their websites is what I'm seeing. And just taking the time that they maybe didn't have time for before, or they didn't prioritize before, to get their websites and social media in order. So I've been photographing a lot of therapists, which I really enjoy. I also work with a lot of, on the branding side, a lot of just like naturopaths and acupuncturists and people starting little practices like that, yoga studios, that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, so did you want me to do my 3 things now, Ari?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think let's start with Monica's question of like, what is a brand, which is a really good question. Obviously, when you think of branding and you think of like Fabletics, you know what they're selling. You see like the commercials, you see their social media presence and their ads, and it's very obvious that they are trying to sell you this thing. And you guys are thinking, I'm a therapist, I don't really need to sell anything. This is just a service that I want to have people aware I'm offering. So where does the selling part, what am I marketing here? And that's a really good question. I think with services like therapy, every service you are wanting to attract a certain client that is a good fit for you. And I think that's even true with therapists. I think even if you're like, no, I'll take anybody, the truth is you have a certain modality, you have a certain vibe, you have a certain way that you do things. And it's going to be a better match if you are attracting people who jive with that. And as I have an interesting experience of not only working with therapists in a professional way, but also just having multiple times in my life looked for therapists. So have scrolled through photos, looked on websites, and I've noted like, what am I looking for? What is standing out to me? And then I can offer that to my clients. And I think definitely finding therapists that I jive with their vibe, their style, what they're saying, what their approach is. And part of that is understanding it visually, seeing it visually. So as I'm on their website, if their website was kind of trash and complicated, and I was like frustrated, like getting road rage while I'm on it, but they're saying something that's like really resonating with me, I'm probably not going to hear it. I'm probably not going to read it. I'm not even going to stick around long enough to read it. And that's where visuals become really important. So branding isn't necessarily like some therapists will do the whole like pictures of them like this, and then there's like a bubble saying blah, 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 blah. I mean, that's like, you think of like the cheesy branding. It doesn't have to be like that. Basically what it is it's you translating visually who you are as a therapist, what the experience is like to be in therapy with you, what the experience of therapy is like, all of that, and translating that into like clear communication and clear visuals. So that's kind of like what branding is like for a therapist. And you can take it in a lot of directions. You can have a heavy social media presence, like some therapists are doing these days, or it can just be really focused on your website. So the three things I'm going to share today, the first is the general kind of look and feel of branding yourself. Second is going to be specifically imagery, the imagery that you use in your branding. And then the third is going to be how you are communicating in your branding, which doesn't sound like it's visual, but using images to communicate and to lead you through is really important. So we'll talk about that. So kind of like we talked about before, we'll start with number one, the look and feel. I think it was Sarah, you talking about like, sometimes you can feel like a deer in headlights when you're like, okay, I have my own thing to brand now. What direction do I even go in? Like I see some people that do like a black and white kind of classy look. I like that. But I also see people who are like rainbows, and it's like, I like that. It's like, what am I? Who am I? Like, how do I brand myself? I think it does help to go and pick out a couple websites that feel really comforting to you, really comfortable for you. And then identify, what am I seeing that I like? Is it that they're using neutral tones? Is it that it's really clean? Or is it that it feels very homey and there's lots of images and there's lots of overlay? Like what is it that I'm liking about this? I remember going through this with Ari when she was starting hers, and she was talking about the colors she was using and how she wanted them to be very gender neutral colors, and just really paying attention to how are people going to feel when they get onto my website, especially for therapy. A lot of people, I always think of my mom. I think of like, if I go onto a website now, I've worked with therapists, I've been to therapy, I kind of can see through a lot of stuff and get to the meat of it. But I think about like my mom, who's just inching towards maybe getting into therapy. She still has no idea what it really is. She doesn't know if she like lays on a couch or if she sits, or like how close you sit, or like she has no idea what the experience is. So I think of her going onto a website and what she's going to be looking for that's going to keep her on that website and that's going to resonate with her. And so thinking about who you're wanting to attract and what feeling you're wanting to put out there and what feeling you're wanting to attract back can really help you as you're thinking of like, how do I want this to look? Who am I as a therapist? I think for therapy specifically, imagining your office. What does my office look like? What have I chosen? And I know it's like less relevant now because it's COVID, but imagining, 2 years from now when you're back in an office, thinking, what would that look like? Would it be a bunch of like tons of pillows on a couch? Or would it be like a lot more clean, streamlined? Would it be a bunch of plants? Like, what would it look like to me? And then you can kind of pick your colors from that. You can kind of pick the feel from that. And you can kind of get an idea like, who am I? What is my style? Because sometimes it's hard when you're like walking around your house in your fabletics pants and you're like, what is my style? Like, it's COVID. Like, I haven't worn jeans in 2 years, So it's like, it's hard to tap into like what my style is. So definitely looking around and seeing what resonates with you. And then imagining like your office, your dream office. What would that look like? That can help you get kind of like some of the textures and colors that you're wanting to portray. I think in general, having a website, because you are a therapist, that is calming, I think. I think the words that you're looking for in branding are things like trust and a safe space and calm. You're wanting people to get on there and be like, this is a person that I am going to be vulnerable in front of. Right off the bat, I want to get a feeling of calm. I don't really, and again, some therapists may disagree. They may be like, no, funky, wild, crazy is like my style. But I think that's more the exception than the rule. I think most people looking at therapists are looking for a safe space. And so having your website kind of be the first, it's like their first introduction to your safe space. So having it be a really, so as you're choosing your colors and the way it flows and the wording you're using, having it be a really peaceful experience. So definitely having a lot of people go through your website several times and say like, this didn't make sense to me. When you're in the business, you forget what you take for granted, that you know what certain terms mean, that you know what psychotherapy means, that you know what the experience of therapy is. And a lot of people don't know any of that stuff. And so having people who are not other therapists go through your site and pick out like, I didn't get from A to B here, or I couldn't tell how to book you, or what were your prices? It was really confusing, and give you all that feedback. That really helps. So, okay, so that's number one, the look and the feel of your website, of your office, of the way you're presenting yourself, and being really intentional and mindful of that.
Anna, are you okay with questions along the way, or would you rather?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do it.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Any questions so far? I have a few.
Okay.
So lots of therapists end up doing like, they do therapy, but then they'll also do maybe clinical supervision, which is different. It's not
Right.
therapy. Or they'll do education, or they'll do trainings. So I guess you gave some really good adjectives for like therapy. I'm curious about what adjectives you would have for like someone who's doing more education, or like with Luisa's, someone who's in the legal world. If you have adjectives that match those that you've noticed work really well for visuals. That's my first question. The second question though is, and I'm just saying it before I forget it. What if you're doing multiple services and they have different vibes?
You mean like couples therapy, but also like trauma therapy, like that kind of thing?
Yeah, or like let's say you're a therapist in one side, but then you're doing like trainings on, like Monica, for example, like trainings on suicide risk. So like one audience is clients, but then the other audience is like professionals. So what do you do as far as like consistent imagery?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that it depends how big. If you have two things going on that are equally as big, sometimes you'll just have a website that you go to and it will have a landing page and it will say very clearly for professionals, for clients, or it'll say, for education or clinical supervision, etc. Go this way, and you will have a little site over there. You can break your sites up into multiple sections, and that way you can just have them very clear. Like, this is just for professionals. They go here. This is all my pricing for this. This is my workshops. This is that. And then over here is just for clients, and it can be that soothing, client-led, experience. Now, so I do photography, but I also do a lot of education. So same kind of thing where I'm working with professionals, but I'm also working with clients. For me specifically, there isn't as much of a differentiation between the two because I'm teaching like what I do. So for me, I haven't separated those on my website. I just have a full page dedicated to the education that I do. And then it's basically like see the rest of my site to see what I'm teaching you pretty much.
Yeah.
But I can see for a business like yours, Ari, like having those separate spaces. If you are doing counseling.
Two different websites.
Yeah.
So you can really clearly communicate it.
For I think you said Monica's practice. Yeah. It really depends how big of a part that is. It could just be a whole separate, like when you have your header at the top of your website, you'd have a whole section, and it would just be one page. And you can kind of change not the branding as far as visuals, keep the visuals the same, but the wording can be relevant to that, who you're attracting there. Yeah. I think just visually, the thing is, you want people to stay on your website as long as possible. Because if you're right away, I think they say 3 seconds. You have 3 seconds to keep somebody's interest. Otherwise, like, they're just gone. They're on to the next list of therapists. They have a whole list of people they're looking at. And I've done that. I've had a whole list of therapists, like recommendations or from the web. And I'm just going one to one. And I literally give it 3 seconds. I didn't think about it, but that is about how long I give it. And it needs to visually connect with me, or the certain words that need to resonate need to be right away communicated. Otherwise, I just can't. We're just like, no, I don't have time. I can't read through all this text. Like, I just need to know. So, okay, imagery. So, imagery can be, it doesn't have to just be photos. It can be illustrations. It can be the text you use. It can be the colors you use. It can be your logo, but having imagery kind of lead somebody through your website. So you don't just want an about picture and like a cover photo. You want imagery throughout the website. Say you're talking about the different services you offer, and you're having, 3 sections. I offer couples therapy, I offer trauma therapy, and I obviously I'm not in the business, so I'm gonna probably say this all weird, but and I offer, like teen therapy. Have a visual for each one of those. Otherwise, people see a block of text and they just glaze over, and they're just like, I can't read, because like we just can't. And so, but having something like lead your eye through it, like, oh, this text is with this picture. Okay, oh, I see. Even if it's a picture of just like hands, it's, so you can get that imagery through, you can do a photo shoot with a photographer that captures headshots, as well as like a lot of other, what I call B-roll imagery, which is just stuff around your office, you interacting with a client, that kind of stuff, to use throughout your website. You could also buy stock imagery that will do the same, just keeping in mind to have it all kind of feel coherent with each other. So you're not having like a bright light, like landscape on one page, and then like some calming, like hands holding like some hippie thing on which I say that fondly. I love hands holding hippie things, but on another page, and it's just like, it doesn't feel coherent throughout it, that's the trick with stock imagery. Okay, so when I do photo shoots with therapists, I break it into 3 parts. And if you hire let's talk about even hiring a photographer to take headshots. I think when you're scrolling through, I don't know if you guys have had this experience, but when you're scrolling through, all these pictures of therapists, I think what stands out to me is how many of them, it's just like selfies with their phone. And I get that. I mean, it's like doing a whole photo shoot and prioritizing that, paying for that. Also, you don't want it to look too cheesy and too like, school photo-y. So I totally get that. But I think what it communicates is like, your client is basically saying, I'm paying you a good amount of money. Therapy's not cheap. Also, I'm trusting you with something very important to me. I want to know you're really taking this seriously. I want to know that like you've taken the time on your end so that your office, your website, it's like done right. And I just want to feel like I can trust you, like you are someone who's solid, and it's interesting how strong imagery can communicate that. Now, you don't want it to be in front of some cheesy background where you're just like frozen. I don't think that's going to make anybody feel like in a safe space or comfortable as much. So you definitely want, what I say to therapists when I'm photographing them is like, we want you to look a little imperfect. We want you to look a little, like, we want to humanize it, because when someone's looking at an image, they're thinking, this is someone that I'm going to be very open with, like I am with few other people in my life. and this is a stranger, I want to feel like this person is human too, and that this person has imperfections, and that this person is this safe advocate for me. And so you really are trying to communicate like kindness, welcoming, safety, and a little quirky, like a little, maybe not quirky, maybe that's not your thing, but like a little imperfection, a little human in there. And I think that's honestly true with lawyers as well. I had the experience of looking for lawyers recently too, and looking through photos and thinking like, I want to feel like this person is sharp and on top of it, but I also kind of want to feel like they've also had problems that they need lawyers for, you know? And so, you know, just like adding that like human element to it, which a good portrait photographer will know how to kind of bring out in you. So when I'm doing a session with a therapist specifically, and most of my branding clients, I break it into these three things, but with therapists specifically, I break it into three categories. There's the headshot, there's the photos of their space, or the B-roll stuff, that's what I call it. And then there's the in-action shots. So your headshots are going to be obviously a shot of you, a portrait of you. I tell my clients to bring 3 different outfits because you want to be able to use these photos in different capacities if you want, and it not all look like the same shoot. You also sometimes will, like a year down the road, be like, I hate that red sweater. Why was I wearing that? And you want just some variety. Things don't always photograph the way that they seem in real life. And so when you're stuck with like a 2D version of an image, you want to not, it will translate differently. So you want variety. So I'd say at least like 2 to 3 outfits. And then thinking about, you know, indoor, outdoor. If you want, it depends on what you do. If you're a lot more of like a, more like energy work in your therapy, maybe being out in nature will be more appropriate. Or if, you know, you do more of like less emotionally connected therapy, maybe just being in your office, or a little bit of both. I usually do a little bit of both, some outside, some inside, with therapists, but that's part one. Another thing to note about if you are going into a photo shoot is to give yourself the space to like don't just put it on your to-do list and just go like it's going to the dentist. Like give yourself space to calm down and be comfortable, because more than a lot of other headshots, a therapist's headshot, you really are trying to communicate who you are, and you really are trying to communicate like the humanity, the connection. And that's hard to just like do like that. A good photographer can help bring that out in you, but you kind of having that a day and having a moment of being intentional enough to like set the space for that, and to have a calm day, a good day, and be able to go into it feeling good, will really make a difference in how the photos show up. Okay, so the next part is photos of your space, or B-roll photos. So these can help just in like the contact page or the services page, when you want all these little shots of little things. And it could be, you know, shots of the books on your bookshelf that you read, that are, you know, in your office, that really have inspired your work. It could be shots of like your hands on the computer when you're talking about like, I do Zoom stuff. These days I'm photographing a lot of therapists with their computers to kind of give the visual of like, what does that look like for me on my side of it as the therapist, you know? And so it'll show them on their computer, like talking to their laptop. So having kind of, or a picture of their laptop, like sitting on a couch with their books. These kind of little vignettes are really handy to just bring visual coherency throughout your website. And then the third part, in action shots, therapists will bring like a friend over to pose as a client, because like I said, we take for granted when we're in our own industry that people know what it looks like. I take for granted that people know what a photo shoot looks like, and they don't really get how it works. People don't know what therapy looks like. And so having a picture, not only of your office, or if you're going to do it all on Zoom, of you talking to the camera, so that in your space, so they can kind of see like, that's what it's going to look like on their end. So having a picture of a therapist, like I usually get a shot of like from behind their friend. So you get the back of somebody's head, and then it's a straight on shot of the therapist, and they're engaging with that person. And I'm telling them to talk about like pizza or something. So they're just like talking about pizza, but you know, the photo is showing them engaging with somebody in their office, in their space. And people go, oh, like I get it now. And it feels safe, and it feels like they can wrap their head around it. And they're way more likely to say like, yeah, that looks like an experience I would want to have with that person. So as far as a photo shoot, and having like hiring a photographer to do a photo shoot, those are the 3 specific categories of things that you'd want to include to kind of have a well-rounded like branding shoot with a photographer. And yeah, just having imagery lead through your, and when you're doing the imagery, really thinking about what you're putting out there, being very intentional, not just a ton of like cupped hands with water. That is very soothing. And like, we all want to see that because it makes us feel calm. But it really thinking about like the inclusivity of the, if you're putting people in your imagery, the inclusivity of that, all ages, all kinds of people that you're including. Also thinking about like a variety of people versus just inanimate objects versus all kinds of things, but having a coherency throughout all of it. So, okay. Any questions on photo shoots?
Is everyone planning to do a photo shoot?
I know, they're like, do we have to? It's hard. Yeah.
You can also do like mini shoots. I know Anna occasionally offers that, but some photographers offer that where they'll just do the headshots. So it's less time commitment and it's less costly.
And it's quick.
That can be nice too, to figure out like, is this an investment I want, and how much does it matter to me on my website?
Yeah.
I will say people always love my websites, and it's all Anna's photography. So like my website is mostly blank if you really look at it, but every time I post some of Anna's photos. And so it makes it feel, and you all know me and know, well, I shouldn't make a self-deprecating joke, but like it makes it feel very professional and put together and, you know, capable. So I've been really surprised at how like every person always comments on that.
Yeah, I think having strong visuals, and I looked at your site, Ari, and you have a lot of visuals. And because it is all my work, because Ari bought a bunch of stock photos from me. So it is all my work. So it's very coherent for all of it, because it's obviously the same.
Yeah. Which is another nice thing people could do, because lots of times we get stock photos from like Unsplash or somewhere, and they're all different artists, but you could also find a photographer that you love and see if they'll give you a deal of like 50 images for whatever. Yeah. Which would still be cheaper than a photo shoot if you're like, you know what, I don't want to do the full thing, but I do want to use images.
Right. Yeah.
Anna, I really want to know, what is your pet peeve of what you're seeing therapists do of photos?
That's a good one.
You don't have to share if you don't want to, but I'm just dying to know like a photographer's take on this. Like you already mentioned the like cupped hands with water. Like I see a lot of like really common images that after a while you start to like, you know, like roll your eyes about.
Yeah. I think that pet peeves that I'm seeing, I think for therapists.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. Just maybe like something you're seeing constantly, so it's kind of losing its freshness or authenticity because it's so common now.
I think that the whole kind of like spa, like mindfulness stock imagery that I think we're seeing, I think people are kind of just like, it is losing its freshness. I think the way you use my imagery, because my imagery is not shot, it's shot for clients, but the way you're using it, Ari, where it's kind of like very people focused and very fun, and it's like movement, and it's kind of brings like humanity to it instead of it being just rocks in a river, where you're like, yeah, I'm calm, but like it doesn't make you, it's not like necessarily like feel like human and safe, you know? So I like the way that you do that with the images. You use the images really well. So I would say really, that's why I like the idea of people doing photo shoots, because it can be all their space, their interactions with people. Some of my clients are now moving to doing like walking sessions where they'll meet up with a client and they'll walk. And so I've been capturing that for people to be like, how does that look? You know? And having lots of images of them interacting with people in all these different ways, really, and it can be just close up of their hands interacting or whatever, can really be used all throughout the website, which is, I think, really humanizes it and gives a visual to it.
Yeah, I love that.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to have us pause briefly to do donations to Equitable in the Circle. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. We'll just take a minute here. So Anna's donated her time to educate us, and there's no pressure, by the way, to donate, but it is one of the things that we do here just for fun. My goal is to kind of help people further like get in the habit of just small donations regularly. And also, I really like the concept of redistributing wealth. And even though I doubt any of us feel like, oh, I have so much wealth, let me pass it along. It's more the concept of like certain people have been very privileged and certain people have not. So if there's a small way to like do some part of sharing it, then that's what I love. And I like inviting people to join me. So Equitable Giving Circle is, they're located in Portland. I don't know how old they are, but in my mind, they're newer. They're from during COVID. And they're focused on small donations, event fundraising, volunteering, community building, and they specifically focus on Black, Indigenous people of color, and helping uplift the community either through like employment, or they do like, I think, farm to table stuff, like making CSAs more accessible. They have a lot of, specifically for families with food insecurity. They have a really great, here's their website. They have a really great Instagram presence. So it's easier to see what they have going on. But in fact, I'll share the Instagram too. But they also have this great website. And I love that the video at the top says reparations. It's a vibe. I think, speaking of visuals, like they're very clearly saying right away, like, hey, this is like, come join us. Like this is really important and really big. So if you want your donation matched, if you want to do a donation, then you can feel free to privately message me, and then Lloyd Collective matches donations. And so far, my goal is to donate 10% of my profit. And so far, altogether, we've donated $6,000 this year, and we still have, a few more months. So we're making a lot of change just through these small little gatherings. I think that's what I wanted to share about that part. So if you want to donate, you'll donate on their website. And then if you want me to match it, you'll private message me and let me know. That's how that part works. Any questions about this part of it? It looks like they do a back to school fundraiser to get school supplies for BIPOC folks, local businesses. They do a lot of good stuff. Okay. All right, so then Anna, it's back to you. And Anna chose this organization, so thanks, Anna, for recognizing them and the work they're doing, and for donating your time today too. I know you're incredibly busy, and your service is very valuable.
Well, thank you for for even having this where you are collecting these donations. I think it's cool. I think Ari is an example of someone who has a lot of irons in the fire and is really good at making things happen and networking. So she's a good person to be in a group with here. Okay, so I'm just going to talk about, if you want to make me the host, Ari, I'll share my screen.
Yes. Oh, yes.
And,
this would be great.
I'm just going to go through a couple websites to just show you in action point number 3, which is consistency in communication.
Okay.
Kind of what's working, what's not. Am I? Oh no. Am
Yeah,
I?
you.
I am. Okay.
Yeah.
So share screen. There we go. Okay. Whoops. Here we go. How do I move? Okay. So I'm going to go through a couple websites. These are, I just grabbed some therapists. This one is, they're both from Scotland, just so that no one would know them. But we're going to start here with this gal. So she looks absolutely darling and lovely, but we are going to kind of pick apart her website a little bit. So the first thing is when I log on to this, I'm thinking about logging onto this in any capacity as if she was doing education or someone who's looking for a therapist. I think the idea of the water and the canoe and like that whole moving thing is cute, it's darling. But all the important information is being totally lost here. It's confusing that she puts the oyster really big because it's like, you don't know what that means. If I were advising her on her website, I would have her name, which is totally hidden here. It's the wrong color for this, in white, just across the top. Just big old clear, her name. Underneath, person-centered counselor, which is kind of her modality. And then she can do her accreditations. But having that really big and white right in the center. This is great that she's talking about doing socially distant stuff, but keeping in mind like how this is presented. So this is very messy and just hard to read, and right away you're just like, no, I can't do this, and you're more likely to just kind of move on. Also, these are not very clear that this is the menu. So if she really wanted to keep this background, I would have in white letters her name, person-centered counseling, and then up at the top a clear menu that has more than just these 3, but up top very clear. So if you click on the About Me, this is where she should have her photo, and at least one photo. I'd say 1 to 3 photos. What I like about this is she has it sections, easy to digest sections. Instead of having these titles to the left, I would have pictures to help visually guide you through, so we don't just see a block of text. But she has them in 3 sections, which is a really great idea. So it's not just one huge page of text. So that really helps your eye jump from thing to thing and read what you want. Going back to the beginning, how she works, again, this needs to be way more visually heavy. You just kind of get lost in all of the words of it, but she does break it down into 3 sections, which I think is a really great idea. So having visuals going with each one of these would really be helpful. But again, it's like, how do you get back to it's like very unclear how to kind of navigate this website. And then you go to the contact page, and she has her, she basically in this contact page doesn't have anywhere where you can click to contact her, which is a problem. That's you want to make it as few steps as possible for people to book you in any business that you have. And this is adding one extra step, which is a copy and a paste, and go to your email and paste it in, instead of just a button that you can press to contact. Also, she has what to expect and her pricing on the contact page. So this is like 3 pages in one, which is just it's not clear enough. She doesn't talk at all about her pricing, or what the first meeting will look like, or if the first meeting is free or anything like that. And then no calls to action, meaning nothing saying, get in touch here, or click here to, contact me, or email me here, nothing like that. So as much as, Jasmine looks like an absolutely lovely person and probably a fantastic therapist, this will not attract people. And I think it's confusing who she's even trying to attract with this site. And so she might have a lot of just where clients come and they're not clients for very long because it wasn't a good fit from the beginning. And so having that clear communication in the beginning helps you find clients that are a good fit from the beginning. I'm going to go over to this gal who I think has a very strong website. Right away, she has, she doesn't have to have a logo. When you're a therapist, you don't really have to have a logo. But she has her name very clear. She has what she does, counseling, psychotherapy. She has a quote right down here that kind of gives the vibe of how she sees things, something that's meaningful to her, and then a very clear menu at the top. You can also scroll down to go through some of the menu. She has this welcome here. It's a little wordy, but I would pare that down to one paragraph. But it's nice to kind of just give a little overview. She has these great pages, such as why to consider psychotherapy and counseling. These are really great things that you don't think people will, you don't even think to explain that. What kind of therapy do you need? Or why do you need therapy? Or what does therapy look like? And then at every page, she has a call to action button right here. See how I can help, or where to go next, or there's always a call to action that will bring you to the next part of her page that will just keep you on her page. So what to expect from therapy. This is really important. She has a call to action right here. She also, as you'll notice, has a similar color palette, really clear text. Some of it's bold, some of it's not, some of it's bigger, so that it's really easy to read, not too wordy. And then she has these illustrations that are the same on each page, and that really adds a coherency to it. She does visually a really nice job of breaking things up, like in sections. Psychotherapy or counseling, couples counseling, what online counseling looks like. Here at the top, when you go to services, what to expect from therapy. Oh, that's where we just were looking. She talks about her pricing. She talks about how to pay. And then right away, you can go and schedule, and then talks about payment. Really clear. Colors are consistent, laid out really organized, and just leads people right through the process. And you feel like you understand her, you get a vibe for her. You go to the about page. She only has one image of herself, but it's clear, kind of gives you a vibe of her background, the background in the image, kind of her style. It's not too wordy, a little couple blurbs about her and then her education. And then testimonials, which are very important, I think, for therapists. I think that's a great idea to have testimonials. And then here under contact, she shows her office, which again gives a visual to what it would be like. She would sit there, you would sit there. Or in this office, maybe this is where she does couples therapy or something, like that's where you would sit, that's where she'd say, oh, and you get an idea. This is what it looks like. This is what the experience is like. So this is an example of really strong branding. It's visually heavy, it's consistent, it's calming, it gives her vibe, and it's very clearly laid out visually. One last thing I'm just going to show you is this gal's, this is another therapist, just her Instagram. The things that are really working here, up here in this section of your Instagram, you have the opportunity to say exactly what you are, exactly what you do, what you focus on. And again, if you're wanting to attract people who are going to jive with your modality, with what you focus on, with what you're good at, you have to lay out and communicate what it is that you're good at, what it is that you do. Draw the people in that you want to draw in. So she specifically lays it out here. She bullet points it very clearly. It's easy to read. Within 1 second, I know what she does, who she is, what she specializes in. And then she has a clear photo of herself. And then I get this, and then she has a really great consistent feed where she curates it obviously very well, but she has a very clear vibe of who she is. A lot of the things she says give me an idea of how she approaches things. And then she has some clear branding here. So, which is like the colors she's using and the different, she's had somebody come in and do branding for her that have just given her these templates to use that are all of very consistent. And she's using these little like surveys and quotes and things like that that really get people to follow, but also get people to kind of get an idea of who she is as a therapist. So, I'm gonna stop that. So those are some examples really quickly. I know we're running out of time of just clear branding and not clear branding. One just kind of felt all over the place, but also more importantly, it felt confusing. It was hard to navigate. It was hard to get the information. And I just kind of felt like that next, you know. Whereas the other one, it was a clear image. The words were laid out clearly. It wasn't too wordy. It flowed really well. And I was like, yeah, I want to hang out here for a minute. This is a place that I would want to be. I want to actually read about what she does and see if that resonates with me. So, okay. I think that's all I have to say about branding and visuals. If you guys have any last questions, let me know.
Any questions about how to apply this to your specific business that you're building?
I feel like I have a much better sense of what the whole concept of branding is and how to make it work for me. So thank you.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I appreciate your question in the beginning because that kind of helped. It was good to bring that up. Like, what is branding for therapists specifically? Yeah.
Actually, seeing what doesn't work is super helpful to go to those websites. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Clear.
Yeah, and putting yourself in the situation of looking for a therapist. And you can even do this. Just look at a ton of therapist websites and be like, what drives me crazy? Or like, what makes me feel good? And it could be colors, it could be the way they do things, words they use, things like that.
Tiny font drives me crazy.
What does?
Tiny font.
Oh, yeah, yes, right?
Kills me.
It kills me too. And especially with so much of it. It's like, please give me bullet points. I want bullet points in bold. You know, like,
don't want to read.
No, we don't want to read.
No. I was thinking when I saw that Instagram page, she did such a, I like how she like is changing the color palette, but it all is still matching.
Yeah.
And I know people in past runs of this program of mine, they'll get on Fiverr and they'll pay, I don't know, $100 or $200, and someone will give them a basic logo, but then they'll give them all these different variations of it.
Yeah.
So then they'll use it like throughout their website or through their Instagram, like as different ways to kind of brand and have.
And there are also apps called, like, I use one called, I think it's called Over. I don't know why it's called Over. It doesn't make any sense how I think about it. But, what is it called? But there are a lot of them that will give you a bunch of templates that you can make Insta stories, you can make posts, and it will just, you can use the same templates. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it can be free or paid if you want more.
Yeah. Any other questions that have come up? All right. Thanks, Anna. That was super helpful.
Yeah, good luck, you guys.
Those of you who donated, for your donations, be sure that you put them as a business expense and then you write that off when you do your taxes. But yeah, thanks, Anna. This was so wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you everyone for coming.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was great.
Yeah, good luck, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.